Picture this. You're building rockets in your garage in Pasadena, California. Not as a hobby, not as a science fair project. You are literally inventing the fuel technology that will one day send humans to the moon. By day, you're the most brilliant rocket scientist in America. By night, you're performing ritual sex magic in your living room, trying to summon a goddess into human form. Your partner in these rituals is a charismatic Navy officer who will go on to create one of the most powerful and controversial religions in modern history. And the United States government knows everything. They've been watching you for years. They just need you too badly to stop you. This is the story of Jack Parsons. And it is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a myth. Every single thing you are about to hear is historically documented. It's just that nobody told you, because the official story of NASA's founding is a lot cleaner without it. Let's get into it. Before we get to the rituals, we need to understand who Jack Parsons actually was. Because the magnitude of what he achieved makes everything else more extraordinary, not less. John Whiteside Parsons was born in Los Angeles in 1914. He never finished college. He had no formal degree in chemistry or engineering. What he had was a mind that operated on a completely different frequency from everyone around him, and an obsessive belief that human beings were meant to reach the stars. By his mid-20s, Parsons had co-founded what would eventually become the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA's primary research facility. He developed the first stable solid rocket fuel that could actually be controlled and directed. Before Parsons, rockets were essentially beautiful explosions pointed vaguely upward. After Parsons, they were machines. Every rocket NASA has ever launched, every satellite currently orbiting Earth, every space mission in human history carries the fingerprints of Jack Parsons' chemistry. His colleagues called him a genius. His enemies called him dangerous. Both were correct. Here's where it gets complicated. Parsons wasn't just building rockets, he was building a philosophy. And that philosophy had nothing to do with mainstream science. Parsons discovered the writings of Aleister Crowley in his early 20s, and it rearranged his entire worldview. Crowley was the most famous occultist in the world, a man who had founded his own religious order called Thelema, built around the central law. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This was not an excuse for selfishness. In Crowley's framework, it meant discovering your true will, your deepest purpose, and pursuing it without apology. For Parsons, this wasn't a contradiction of science, it was its extension. He believed that magic and physics were both attempts to understand and manipulate the underlying forces of reality. Parsons joined the Ordo Templi Orientis, Crowley's magical order, and eventually ran the Agape Lodge in Pasadena out of his own home. This lodge was not a secret underground cult. It was a gathering of engineers, artists, writers, and intellectuals who shared Parsons' belief that consciousness could interact with reality in ways science hadn't mapped yet. His home on Orange Grove Avenue, a grand Pasadena mansion, became legendary. Parties lasted for days. Rituals happened alongside rocket equations. The neighbors were horrified. Parsons didn't care. Before every rocket test at the JPL facility, Parsons would stand alone on the launch pad and recite Crowley's hymn to Pan, invoking the god of chaos and wild nature. His colleagues thought it was eccentric. Parsons thought it was essential. He saw no separation between his scientific and magical work. They were the same project. What mattered was the work. In 1945, a Navy officer named Lafayette Ron Hubbard arrived at Parsons' house. He was charming, theatrical, and magnetically persuasive. He was also, by every available account, one of the most skilled manipulators of the 20th century. Parsons was immediately captivated. He wrote to Crowley himself, describing Hubbard as having an amazing amount of energy, vitality, and a charismatic magnetism. Crowley, operating from England, was less impressed. He wrote back warning Parsons to be careful, describing Hubbard with a word that translates politely as a crude opportunist. Parsons didn't listen. He rarely did when he was excited about something. What followed was one of the strangest partnerships in American history. In early 1946, Parsons and Hubbard began what Parsons called the Babylon working. The goal was to perform a series of magical rituals designed to summon the goddess Babylon. The goal was to incarnate her in a living woman who would then carry a magical child. This child, in Parsons' framework, would usher in a new age of human consciousness. The rituals involved weeks of ceremony. Hubbard acted as the scryer, the one who could see into the magical realm and report what was happening there, while Parsons performed the physical components. The physical components involved sex magic, ritualized sexual acts designed in thelemic theory to generate and direct magical energy. This was not considered shameful or bizarre within the OTO framework. It was considered the most powerful form of magical working available to human beings. For 11 days they performed these rituals in the California desert. Parsons believed they were working. He reported genuine supernatural experiences, strange lights, inexplicable winds, impossible coincidences. Hubbard reported everything Parsons wanted to hear. And then a woman named Marjorie Cameron appeared at Parsons' door. Parsons was convinced she was the elemental, the magical being his rituals had summoned. He fell completely, utterly in love with her. Cameron was an artist, a fiercely independent woman who had no idea what she was walking into. She and Parsons eventually married, and their relationship was, by all accounts, the most authentic and loving of his life. But Hubbard had other plans. While Parsons was occupied with Cameron, Hubbard ran off with Parsons' previous girlfriend, Betty, and the entirety of Parsons' life savings, approximately $20,000, which they used to purchase a yacht. Parsons performed a final ritual, reportedly summoning a force that caused the yacht to encounter severe weather, forcing them back to port. He recovered some of the money through legal channels. He lost Betty permanently. Within 2 years, Hubbard had taken everything he learned from Parsons' framework, the idea of discovering your true purpose, the concept of clearing away mental obstacles to reach a higher state of consciousness, the language of spiritual advancement through structured practice, and built it into the foundation of what would become the Church of Scientology. Scholars of religious history have noted that the structural DNA of Scientology's early framework bears remarkable similarities to thelemic concepts. Hubbard never acknowledged Parsons publicly. He spent the rest of his life denying any meaningful connection. By 1952, Parsons had been stripped of his security clearance by the US government. The official reason was his associations with communist-sympathizing individuals. The real reason was the FBI file, which had grown to hundreds of pages, documenting everything: the rituals, Hubbard, the lodge, the letters to Crowley. They needed him gone from classified work, but couldn't afford a public trial that would expose how deeply the founder of JPL was embedded in occult practice. On June 17, 1952, an explosion tore through Parsons' home laboratory. He died of his injuries 37 minutes later. He was 37 years old. The official verdict was accidental. He had dropped a container of fulminate of mercury. His mother refused to believe it. His friends refused to believe it. Cameron never recovered. The explosion destroyed most of his personal papers. Here is what the official story of NASA doesn't tell you. The science that gave humanity access to space was partly built by a man who genuinely believed that magic was real, who recited occult hymns on launch pads, who attempted to summon a goddess into physical form.